from the Maplewood Village Alliance. And Mrs. Larry, do you want to talk about this from the Code Committee?
Yes, the Village Alliance brought us a request that outdoor enclosures be available to the restaurants in Maplewood Village during the winter months. We did look into it and we did discuss it with our engineer and, not our engineer, our
Construction
official, thank you, Mr. Mendola, and we did come back with, we did have some discussion about it, and what we discovered was that if these enclosures accommodate more than 50 people, 51 people, said restaurant that requested must add a bathroom. Additionally,
It's if the additional seating in the enclosure brings it to more than 51, so it's the inside and outside.
oh, that's even
Yeah.
more restrictive than I thought.
Right.
Okay, then my misunderstanding. So, yes, then if the entire capacity becomes more than 50, then they must add another bathroom. Additionally, within the enclosure, the regular, what do we call it, the passageways between the tables and the chairs and the people have to be the same as indoors. That makes it a little bit of a high bar to hurdle, to jump for some of the restaurants. Additionally, our discussion talked about should they be able to do this, the additional revenue that they're bringing on, and actually they're actually doing this by expanding their premises onto township property. So one of the suggestions that we made was that there be a $100 a month fee for outdoor enclosures during the winter months. So, and that would just be during the winter months. They did, you did receive, well, I guess Mr. Grodman did not receive one, I'm so sorry. I'll get you one, you can have mine. Oh, okay. We did receive their cold weather enclosure proposals from Ms. Duran, and so we put this to the Township Committee to hear their thoughts on it.
Okay, thank you. Just the other requirement is that they would have to meet all fire and health department codes too.
What about ADA passage on the sidewalk?
Well, you're talking about for the patrons or for others? Somebody going by?
Sidewalks, yeah.
Yeah, so they would need, they'd have to meet the 4-foot requirement that we have with outdoor cafes. So there has to be a minimum of 4 feet between the end of the cafe and the curb.
And does that include other important things on the sidewalk, like sign poles and?
No, it's the wall. Right now, it's the end of the cafe to the curb.
Right.
You don't count like a garbage can or a pole or anything like that.
Well, I'm only concerned, the reason I think it's more important when there's a wall now instead of just a table that's movable is that if there's no way for people to get by if they're in a wheelchair, for example, and there's a parking sign and the enclosure is literally 4 feet from the curb, but then they have nowhere to go, whereas when there's no enclosure there, people can move the table or the chair over and deal with that. Can I ask a procedural question? Where does this go, and does it after this to an ordinance gets drafted to allow it, or?
Well, we could do 2 ways. We could do a resolution which would allow it on a temporary basis, or an ordinance which would make it permanent.
I have questions, however you're going to do it. So what is the, I heard the information about the bathroom and everything, so restroom, so what is that was just information?
Yeah, so basically what this requires is an enclosure would require, if it gets over more than 51, the code, the building code requires an additional bathroom, or at least you have to have 2 bathrooms.
Okay.
So
If it presently seats 60,
you have to have 2 bathrooms.
they have to have 2 bathrooms anyway, so.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So that will all be handled by the building. In other words, all would have to be is they would have to meet the code. So whatever the code is, so,
Architectural.
yeah, they have to have an architectural plan also, but if we would agree to this in concept, which we haven't agreed to it yet, then we would have to draft an actual ordinance,
Right.
and then take a look at that.
Yes, we would.
Well, I think there's some ordinances out there that we would copy.
Yeah, if I could make a suggestion, if there is a consensus that you want to do this, since we definitely have some time, I'd like an opportunity to look at this and gather some more information, maybe speak to the construction official, and then come back to you with something.
Yeah, well, we don't have that much time because this is a November 1st. This would start November 1st. You know, so I guess the question, actually going back to you, Ms. Adams, is I would assume this is a very expensive proposition for a restaurant to do, and probably would want to make sure that they would have an opportunity to use it for multiple years as opposed to 1 year. So that goes to more of speaking for an ordinance as opposed to a resolution.
Yeah, I wouldn't want somebody to invest, nor would I want it to be handled on a resolution, nor do I see a rush to November 1st.
And I clearly understand that, and that makes perfect sense to me, except for the fact that it doesn't give the township an opportunity to really review and see whether or not it works.
Yeah, I personally don't want to rush to November 1st.
What if you pass the ordinance and you find that this concept just doesn't work?
Well, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Well, I
But
understand.
we don't know. I mean, we don't know all the different restaurants that are out there that would be interested in this. So it might work on some locations and not other locations. So this is not a blanket check that you are allowed an outdoor cafe enclosure. You have to meet the guidelines. So those are all the guidelines that are all the requirements that we have in the outdoor cafe ordinance. And so that's the 4-foot passage, and it's the requirement that Mr. Mandola was talking about the square footage per occupant, all that stuff, the fire, the health codes. So those would all have to be met before you got a permit to do this. And so I don't think we have to have everything in here, we just have to say that it has to meet all the requirements. What?
I guess I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, let Mr. Dick.
I just think I don't have a great comfort level that I'm going to have this to you by October.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
Yes.
As I expressed in our code committee, I'm on the fence with the whole proposal itself. I am not comfortable saying that we're going to turn this on by November 1st, and I don't know what the rush is. And especially now that Mr. Desiderio seems to have a little bit of discomfort with it, I would actually rather at least say, if you want to do a cold weather enclosure, then wait till the really cold weather and do it. Or take this year to work it out and do it for next November. I just feel like this is something, especially if you're asking a restaurant to possibly add a bathroom. I'd be very surprised if a restaurant could get an architectural plan in time to do this for November. So I don't see the rush.
Yeah, there's nothing stopping them from putting it up in January if it's something they're going to use year after year. And then also, if the weather provides enough warmth, they can have outdoor tables without an enclosure.
Correct.
As Ms. Larry said at the beginning too, I think that the bar is pretty high for the restaurants that do want to pursue this. I think conceptually it's a great idea, but I think logistically it's going to be a pretty difficult thing to do.
But I think we should be realistic. No one is going to put in another bathroom in order to have an outdoor enclosure. It's just not going to happen. Not going to do that. But it's just So this is only someone who's going to put an outdoor enclosure that falls under that 51 threshold, because there's no return. And, there's no space in the restaurant to put a second bathroom if that's required. If it already has 2 bathrooms and meeting the code and can grow, that's another thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's also the footage though, and the footage around each occupant.
Right.
That,
The 7
and the
square
art,
foot.
right, and the architectural plan, and I just think November is just too late.
All I was reacting to, Mr. Desiderio said we have some time.
Oh.
And I was saying that, well, it depends how you count. This is a frame to be from November 1st to March 1st. So it's only has 6 months to begin with, or 5 months actually, or 5 or 6, I guess 6 months.
May
So-
1st, it says.
May 1st? No, it's still 6 months.
But I think they can be as flexible as we want them to be.
I think we all agree that it's not going to be ready by November 1st,
Right.
so.
So one of the issues, I think, Ms. Adams talking about the ADA passage is a real concern, because you're absolutely right. Now with an outdoor cafe, you can move those around to get people through. Once you have a wall there, as we see in these pictures, that's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
Right.
So it may have to be amended to be 4 feet from anything stuck in the sidewalk. So,
But what about the primary concept? I mean, you said you're on the fence about it. This is, and I think you said it in the beginning, and I think there are others who have said in the past about, do we want to now say on a permanent basis, 12 months a year, that, and I guess allow the enclosure, that we're allowing public space to be used for the private business. Now, we do that in an outdoor cafe. So is there really a difference between an outdoor cafe being able to use public space in the warmer months and shoulder months, as opposed to all year round?
I think there is.
I believe there is.
There is.
Yeah.
What is the difference?
Well, a little bit of the difference is that the, and I'm not opposed to it necessarily. I think this could be used in all weather, all the time, and it's out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week through those months, not like we have now where the tables, umbrellas, and chairs have to be removed. So that makes a big difference. And it's a permanent structure. It's the same, in my mind, it's not that dissimilar from the enclosures that have been going up and we've not allowed to stay up all year long for cold weather, coming in or out of the door of a business, that those have to come down when the weather's better. Because there are some, I mean, if you think about it, these would be, if they're left up year-round, but there's sort of this permanent cloth, sturdy cloth thing on the facades of all these historic buildings, doesn't exactly sit entirely well with me.
I also think that in the summer weather, sitting outside, there's a certain amount of summertime, kick back, go out, eat under the stars, whereas during the cold weather, really, all these enclosures are to do is to increase the capacity of the restaurant.
Right.
To me, it's a different thing. One is for the patrons, the other is for the profits. That's the way I see it, and that's the difference for me. Or yes, for the profits and the business itself.
Right, which is why we need to also discuss the rent of our property, because I think that's,
Right. I think that was a starting point.
yeah.
Yeah. We just wanted to get in
It's
there.
a dollar.
The two things. One is, I think in the these could not stay up year round because they have to be taken down.
Right, but they're up 24 hours a day.
Yes, that's absolutely right, as opposed to the cafe, which you're taking in at night. I guess I would disagree with you on the impact, Ms. Larry, because I do think, when I've been in places where they have these outdoor cafes, there is still a sense of sidewalk activity because they're open. You get to see people out there. It gives you a feeling that there's some activity going on. So I think it has some benefit to the business district that an outdoor cafe would have. But it is certainly use of public space now on a year-round basis.
And when I look at these enclosures, I don't see any more window space and, well, the one I do see, but Arturo's and this other one, what I see no more window space and the impact of watching people than I see it at Coda's, and they don't have this enclosure, so I guess that's my thinking.
Well, how do you want to proceed? Doesn't sound like there's overwhelming interest in moving forward here. Do you want to move forward, or do you want to just say, not at this time, and maybe never?
I don't know, I'm kind of torn. Part of me wants to, I guess I would be willing to move forward with it with more discussion. I don't necessarily want to give township property to an individual business for peanuts when other businesses are stuck with the square footage that they're already renting at a very pretty premium rate in Maplewood Village. I'm assuming is this also pertain to other business districts?
This is just a proposal for the village.
But if we're doing an ordinance, could it not pertain to
It could.
Springfield Avenue or Irvington Avenue?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I understand that it's a proposal from the Village Alliance mostly, but, you know, I don't want to shortchange ourselves. We're basically taking township property away from everybody else in the town and giving it to one individual business or two or three. So, you know, those are some concerns. So if a business is willing to pay, in my view, we certainly could use the revenue.
Any thoughts? I know you were torn.
Or they could look for
I
another
am torn, I'm still torn. I see the benefit of it, I see the benefit to the businesses, and of course, we do want to be business friendly. But I do have a lot of misgivings. I have no problem with further discussion.
Okay.
And if moving forward means we have to throw the switch, then I would vote against this now. If moving forward is just continued discussion, I'll do that.
Robin?
I think that we should move forward with this and discuss it further. I think that our downtown business district is a very vibrant district, and we want to do everything that we can to allow, it's a destination that people come to for restaurants all the time. And I think that if we can help our restaurants continue to do increased business during the winter, but also, as Ms. Adams says, to the benefit of the township, you know, with additional funds as well, I think this is something that we do have to explore further. And I would support moving forward with it.
What I would suggest then is that Ms. Adams is our liaison to the Alliance, and that have a conversation with the board about this. And, some of the points that you've raised and some of the points that others have raised. I think from the code committee, there's really nothing more we can do, because Mr. Mendola has given us the information that there are certain tipping points. If you get to over 51, you have to make sure you have a second bathroom, you have to have so much square footage. And he thought that was, as long as it met that he could meet that. The fire chief was there, he had interest there. So I think we ought to leave it, we ought to kick it back to the Alliance, and if the Alliance wants to push it, they can, you can share with them some of the concerns here, Ms. Adams.
Has it ever been discussed in Maplewood to have outdoor dining? I mean, I know it's permitted year-round, but has there ever been a discussion that outdoor heaters, does our fire department look, are they opposed to those?
They're not opposed to it.
Okay,
Well,
so
that's
that's another
included.
option
Right.
for cold weather as opposed to
Yeah, I believe Arturo's uses
the
the kerosene ones, yeah, and I think the fire department has, you know, checked them out and they're okay with it.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
I would like to, when you take this back to the Alliance, one thing that might actually tip it a little more for me if this was something that we felt the Springfield partnership was interested in and they felt might benefit them. So maybe, being that they both have the same,
No,
you don't think so?
we don't even have outdoor cafes on Springfield Avenue. I mean, it's just
Because
just
they don't
not-
want them, they have never had.
it's just not, it's just not part of their business plan.
Okay.
The only one, there's a couple that have, do we have any cafes?
On Springfield Avenue, no higher.
Yeah, we have a couple of people that put some chairs out there, but, at this point, there's not, a strong interest on the part of the businesses, the food businesses on Springfield Avenue to do this. There's no reason we can't make it permissive. We could say, you know, that we can make this outdoor cafes, enclosures everywhere, just like we have an outdoor cafe, which is everywhere. But there's no one's driving it from the partnership, similar to what we have driving. Mr. Derry, do you want to say something?
I was just wondering, does the partnership have the information about the bathrooms and all of those, all of the requirements?
The Alliance, yes.
It's in Alliance,
Yeah.
They do? Okay.
Yeah, after our meeting, I shared the information with Julie Doran.
I'm just curious, and Ms. Adams will find out, I guess, how many businesses actually have an interest in, given these additional requirements, how many would actually qualify for it? So,
Right.
It's pretty difficult.
Yeah, well, the sidewalks are
I'll
really
track
narrow.
down, there's some ordinances from other places just to have that.
Yeah, they have other ordinances, I think, the Alliance. So, yeah, I don't think we have to do too much. It's their interest, they can find the ordinances.
Understood, okay.
Okay? So whenever you want to bring it back, we can discuss it.
Okay, well, our next meeting is the second Wednesday in October.
Okay.